Hello, America. You are watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm Frank Morano, sitting in for John Tobacco, who will join us in just a few minutes. Believe it or not, John has chosen to abandon you today in order to be chairman of a bocce tournament, and we're glad to see his priorities are well aligned. But not abandoning you is on the left, noted presidential historian, Columbia University professor, former Democratic candidate for public advocate here in New York City, David Eisenbach, and on the right, former candidate for New York City Controller, John Burnett. He also is a Newsmax columnist. Gentlemen, just to wrap up our discussion of the presidential race, on the Democratic side, who would you say the favorite at this point is? I mean, David seems to think it's Elizabeth Warren. You seem to think that that would be a gift for Donald Trump and
Absolutely.
The Republicans.
With a big bow, right? I don't think that when you look at her policies, she's further left than Bernie Sanders.
Bless you!
Thank you.
Yeah.
And even the background is sneezing at her,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
But in terms of, but who else is it? Is it going to be Biden?
Biden is wounded. You know, I think this is going to be a photo finish, and I think it all depends upon who is the.
Does Kamala Harris come out of the?
Who's the Chris Christie, right? Yeah. That's going to step in on stage and take down one of the top three, right?
You mean for the debate, upcoming debate, or coming up? What do you mean?
The upcoming debates.
Yeah.
Who's going to land the bombshell? What other, like, let's say December or January surprise that might come up to start weakening one of the top three? So we'll see how it plays out.
It's going to be hard. She's got the money, and she is rising in the polls. The other ones are dropping in the polls, and that's the trend you want to be on.
Just coming back to
polls are emotional, though.
And I think we've seen from Brexit, from the Joe Crowley AOC race, from the 2016 presidential race, that they're also not always accurate. I mean,
right.
But anyway, I want to come back to the issue of Bernie Sanders and his heart attack, and certainly we're all, irrespective of politics, really glad that he's recovered. But in some ways, David, it's similar to 1972's Democratic presidential primary race with George Wallace being shot. Now, George Wallace, people don't realize this now, but he was a real contender to win the Democratic nomination for president in 1972. But what you saw is he was just unable to campaign after being shot, and even when he ran in 76, going around there in a wheelchair made him look much older than he actually was. So the Bernie bros, who are historically very loyal, who would rather vote for Donald Trump than anybody but Bernie, where do they go? Do they go to Elizabeth Warren?
It's interesting. And by Bernie bros, we'll just broaden it out. Kind of the hardcore socialists, the Democratic socialists, right?
My brother's a Bernie guy. He said he wouldn't vote for Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, and a lot of the socialists don't view Elizabeth Warren as true blue.
Right, because she backed Hillary Clinton and not Bernie Sanders.
But they're not going to Biden. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to Kamala Harris either. So where are they going to go? Warren is really the only one.
Well, there is one presidential candidate, John, that endorsed Bernie 4 years ago, who's a candidate to pick up some of the slack if Bernie ends up, and we hope that's not the case, but needing to withdraw from the presidential race.
Well, when you look at the past several months, the trends, Bernie's been slipping even before the surgery. And then now there's a lot of questions about his health. Does he have the stamina? So he's likely to continue to slide. Tulsi Gabbard, I think there's a good chance she might be the sleeper. And let's go back and look at, in 2008, there were a lot of people discounting President Barack Obama at that time. And then next thing you know, he started picking up some steam, and he blew it off the charts on Super Tuesday. I'm not saying Tulsi will, but it's going to be extremely competitive.
Is foreign policy going to be a major issue? Because that's her avenue, right?
Oh, yeah.
If foreign policy is a big discussion, Tulsi Gabbard can get some camera.
All right, let me ask you both about what's happening in China. We just saw the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. They were congratulated on their anniversary by President Trump. They chose that week to shoot one of the Hong Kong protesters. Things are getting very bad between China and the NBA. There's still no necessarily resolution to the tariff war with China. Tell me where you think these China-Hong Kong relations end up. How does it affect the United States, not only with respect to the trade war, but our relationship in general?
Well, how shameful that we have this executive for the Houston Rockets that has to apologize for standing up for freedom and democracy, right? Because the NBA is scared about their profits with China, right? We're Americans. We should be able to stand up regardless of whatever leverage the Chinese have on us.
I think this is a moment of hypocrisy.
On the part of the NBA?
On the part of the NBA, sports teams, and the overall climate. You know, going back to the NFL kneeling, right? You had corporations, you had activists, you had other people, right, supporting the right to protest. And those that spoke against it, they actually came out and tried to vilify those individuals. It's just the opposite with China, right? We should actually be able to be free to speak out, whether you're an employee, executive, or someone in the general public. We know when people's rights are being compromised, and there's no need to actually try to suppress anyone in America for pointing out something that is not right.
How long can this trade war continue with China before it takes an even more deleterious effect on the American economy, which ultimately will probably have some sort of a political impact?
Yeah, well, look, if you're going to start a trade war with China, you have to be prepared to be a one-term president or do it in your second term. Right? You can't have it both ways. The economy is going to take a hit. The stock market is going to take a hit. And you can't have Larry Kudlow every 2 weeks standing up talking about how great trade negotiations are without weakening your position in the actual trade negotiations.
I completely disagree with you, David.
Yeah.
We did not get here overnight. It took decades.
Of course.
And you're not going to resolve this trade war in 1 or 2 years, right? Even with the trade war, right? You take any of the past presidents. With the trade war, they wouldn't even be able to hold the stock market above 22,000 or even get to this territory. So the fact that he's actually battling, getting some interim wins.
Name one interim win he's gotten so far in this trade war.
So some of the farmers were hit slightly. We got them some aid, and then next thing you know, we have some interim deals with China to buy more soybeans and other things. So he's handling it like a business trade negotiator, and that's what we need in
John,
this White House.
Here's where the trade war is gone, and here's where it's going to end up. They are going to agree to buy more soybeans and pork, and they get to control 5G and technology going forward and stealing all of our technology.
Look, David, this is about math. This is about math, not
it.
politics. 3.5% unemployment rate, historical unemployment rate.
We're talking
for
about
several
the trade war,
demographics, historic numbers in terms of the Dow. That's what's going to the poll. People are going to vote.
We're talking about the trade war.
That's what they want.
We get to be an agricultural vassal of the Chinese controlling our technology.
John Tobacco usually only rings the bell when folks agree. I'm going to ring it because we'll have to agree that we're out of time for this subject. Coming up a little bit later, we'll talk to John Tobacco. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Kelly Vlahos. She's the executive editor of the American Conservative. She says there's a great deal of hypocrisy in terms of the criticism on Syria. Still to come, Ronica Cleary is here. The crypto cowboy is here, and Tom Keogh is here. We'll break down the China situation a bit more. We'll take your comments next on Liquid Lunch, Newsmax TV.